Hello, my name is Richard Hahn, Vice President of Sales of Northern Leasing Systems. My mission here today is to help you understand the leasing process. By understanding what a lease is and knowing the benefits of leasing and all the steps in completing the lease document, you will be better prepared to sell more leases, make more money, and have very few disgruntled customers. First, I'd like to introduce Northern Leasing Systems. Northern Leasing Systems is a 15-year-old company specializing in micro-ticket leasing. Now, what does that mean, micro-ticket leasing? Micro-ticket is business products that sell for less than $10,000. 99% of our portfolio consists of various types of credit card terminals and various point-of-sale equipment. Now, due to the high volume of leases we write, and again, we process over 8,000 leases a month, the challenges of responding quickly and processing this amount of business has unique challenges that are typically outside the scope and capabilities of mainstream leasing companies. Now, let's define a lease. It is simply an agreement or a contract to rent a piece of equipment for a fixed amount of time for a fixed monthly cost. The terms of a lease can be 12, 24, 36, or 48 months in length. 90% of the business we write, however, is 48 months in length. The reason being, the longer the terms, the lower the monthly payment. One thing, however, I'd like to point out, and it's very important to tell this to the merchant, is that the lease company owns the equipment during the entire term, and the merchant does not own the equipment at the end of the lease. However, at the end of the lease term, the merchant has three options. Number one, he could return the equipment and we stop billing him. Number two, he can exercise a fair market value, which at that point, we turn ownership of the equipment to him. Or number three, if he does nothing, it becomes a month-to-month rental. Now, let's take a look at some of the benefits of leasing. The main benefit of leasing for a small business is that it allows him to purchase your product over time with small monthly payments. It is basically another form of installment buying. Most businesses, especially the startups, are usually cash-starved and require various forms of credit. You're extending him another line of credit that I would like to add does not appear on his credit report, and that is unlike other lines such as credit cards and bank loans. Conservation of capital is very important as well. It would be foolish for a merchant to pay $1,200 up front for a terminal when he could take the same $1,200 and purchase inventory for his business. Depending on how often he turns his inventory over, he could turn that $1,200 into $5,000 in profit. So the benefits are as follows. Get the terminal he needs today for a small monthly charge, conserve his cash to put into inventory, and of course, all the lease payments are tax deductible. Now, how do you get started with Northern Leasing? Before you can begin submitting lease applications to Northern Leasing, you, as an independent salesperson, must complete and submit a Northern Leasing Systems vendor agreement. Upon approval, you'll be given a salesman's code and assigned a personal account manager who will be your day-to-day contact and will process all your lease applications. You will also receive a formal package with a supply of lease applications and all critical information. At that point, you will be in a position to submit leases. The approval process to set you up usually takes 24 hours or less. I would now like to explain the general lease flow, starting with the completion of the lease documents, all the way to the end, upon which you will receive a funding check from Northern Leasing. I'll then go back and explain in more detail certain aspects of the process. The first step is to complete the lease application. The application is a 4-page document where the first page is all the specific information pertaining to the individual, such as name, address, telephone number, Social Security. The remaining 3 pages are our standard terms and conditions of the lease. It's a fairly straightforward process to complete all the required blanks. Just be careful not to pass over a few areas that need initialing, and also the very last page at the very back of the lease that needs to be completed by you. Now, after you have returned to your office with the completed application, you must submit the application to us for credit approval. There are 2 ways to do this. The most common method is to fax the cover page of the application to your account manager. Your account manager will then run the credit of the merchant and then notify you of the merchant's credit score and let you know if he's been approved or not. This process will usually take 2 hours or less. You should then be sending the original application overnight to your account manager with a copy of a voided check from the merchant. This is required to ensure the merchant has a valid business checking account, and so we can also accurately record his checking account number for the monthly lease payments that are done by Automatic Clearinghouse, or ACH. ACH is the only method we use to automatically deduct the monthly payments from the merchant's accounts. We will not bill any other way. Now, assuming you have received an approval, you must then purchase a terminal, complete the download, and deliver it to the merchant location. You will then install the terminal and train the merchant. Then, at the completion of that process, you will call Northern Leasing and conduct a verification call. We will speak to the merchant to ensure that he understands all the terms of the deal. After completion of that call, and assuming we have the original lease document in hand, we will ACH your funds into your checking account. Now, as I mentioned before, the second way to submit an application is to enter all the information online from your computer from your office. In this way, you will have an instant credit score. Now that you understand the general flow, let's go back and look at some of the steps in a little bit more detail. First, let's figure out how to complete a monthly lease payment and how much you will earn in profit. The monthly payment is a function of the term of the lease, the credit score of the merchant. You'll also notice that it says plus applicable taxes. Northern Leasing will compute the tax and add it to the monthly payment. Do not write anything on the lease. There is another small monthly charge that may be added onto the monthly payment. It is called Loss Damage Waiver, or LDW. Since Northern Leasing Systems owns the equipment, we require that the merchant have the terminal insured for fire and theft. Therefore, it is necessary for the merchant to provide us with a certificate of insurance from his insurance company with Northern Leasing Systems as the loss payee. If the merchant fails to do that, he will be charged an additional $4.95 a month. Let's discuss interim rent. There's something you need to understand well so you can explain it to your customer. All new leases start on the first of the month. Upon signing the lease and submitting it to Northern Leasing, you or the merchant will be required to submit one payment up front. This payment is applied to the last or 48th payment of the lease. You would have completed the monthly payment, told the merchant about LDW and the tax. Remember, since all the leases start on the first of the month, what happens to the days the terminal is in use prior to the first of the month? He is billed a daily rental called interim rent, and it is computed by the following way. We take your monthly payment divided by the number of days in the month to come up with a daily rental fee. This partial payment, or interim rent, will be ACH from the merchant's account a few days after you get funded. Then on the first of the month, the first full month payments will be deducted. Let's talk a little bit about credit. The creditworthiness of your merchant is very important. It determines how much you will profit on a lease, and it can positively or negatively affect your ability to continue submitting leases to Northern Leasing. Merchants in the lower tiers, which are the D&E credits, have a very high rate of default. Therefore, it is necessary to limit the amount of D&E leases we fund. Northern Leasing Systems limits every sales office to no more than 30% D&E applications at any point in time. If a portfolio starts to exceed 30%, those leases will be declined until a more reasonable mix is attained. Northern Leasing Systems determines credit scores by using Experian. It is one of the 3 major credit scoring bureaus in the country. Now, by inputting a merchant's Social Security number, we get an instant full credit report and also a credit score, which is a number ranging from 350 to over 800. This is called a FICO score, which stands for Fair Isaac Company. And it is a widely accepted computer scoring model that happens to be 99% accurate in determining someone's willingness and ability to repay a loan. We then segment these scores into groups, which are our A, B, C, and D credits. Northern Leasing will accept all of your lease applications except for the following reasons. Your credit mix must be in balance, which means you cannot have any more than 30% DE credits in your mix. We will not accept an application if the merchant is currently in bankruptcy, and we will not accept an application if a merchant has a charge-off from any other lease company. Now, I would like to add, since all our credit decisions are based on an individual's credit score, it is important to mention that all leases must be personally guaranteed. Only on rare occasions do we accept a lease with a corporation as a signer. Typically, these corporations are large, well-established outfits with a strong balance sheet. It is also important to know that a lease is non-cancelable. However, if a business is sold, the lease can be transferred. Now, one of the more unpleasant things is chargebacks. Let's discuss chargebacks. Chargebacks is one of the more unpleasant things we need to deal with. A chargeback is when, for some reason or another, Northern Leasing determines that a lease is no good and wants its money back. Chargebacks occur for various reasons, but the most common one is first payment default. Northern Leasing must be able to ACH its first full month payment from the merchant's account. Once this is done, you are off the hook as far as your responsibility to us, even if the merchant fails to pay from that point on. But if we fail to get the first payment after a few attempts, you will be sent a notice called a first payment default notice. Many times it can be cleared up quickly because we may have the wrong checking account number or the merchant may have failed to put enough money into his account. In either case, we generally give you 2 weeks to resolve the issue. If we determine at that point we cannot get the payment, we will then consider it a bad deal and want our money back. You can either send us a check for the amount, or we can deduct it from your next funded deal. The other reasons for chargebacks are rare, but do occur. Fraud on the part of the salesman or merchant, when discovered, will result in a demand for return of our funds. Forgery is another reason for a chargeback. If you pick up an application and did not see the person sign it, you could be at risk. If a merchant had someone else forge his signature, he can legally get out of the lease. It is a good idea to view every merchant's driver's license and check his signature to make sure he signed it himself. I hope this information was helpful. If you should have any questions, please contact us by accessing our website at www.northernleasing.com. Thank you very much.